everybody. It's episode 21 of our odyssey through the definitive vinyl collection of Bob Dylan. And might be good news, might be bad news, might be the ultimate good news for some of you. We're now reached Saved, the second album in Bob's fantastic gospel trilogy. And Sid's a particular fan of this period in Bob's history. As usual, there's an amazing magazine with the collection. Cover of the album. A photo of Bob, and inside more pictures of the album. Loads of facts. This album came out in 1980. And what an interesting thing is, many years I've had a CD of this, and that's the cover. You see the cover? This cover was controversial because, well, firstly, of course, it's shit. It's a shit cover. And secondly, it's got this hand pointing down from the sky, which is supposed to be God, I think. And these people are scrabbling, please save me, God. This is the Nice Price CD, which I've still probably my go-to version of this album. And then, of course, that cover was so very unpopular that they changed it. And the version we've got in the vinyl collection is the changed version, which is a painting of Bob on stage. This isn't quite as shit, but it's still pretty shit, actually. These are bad album covers. The previous one was Slow Train Coming, the first gospel album, and I don't particularly like it, but at least it's got some sense of design about it, you know, and this was a very popular album as well. This one was not so popular, and I think it got terrible reviews, but is it worth those reviews? I don't know. I just think a bloke who used to produce albums with iconic quality art is now in a real down spiral in terms of the album covers. When he produces an album with a shit cover and replaces it with another shit cover because of complaints, we're in a real weird situation. It's almost like Bob doesn't really care about the covers anymore, and it's one of the. I just mentioned it because it's a puzzling thing. Anyway, this album was recorded in 4 or 5 days between two legs of a massive tour, promoting Slow Train Coming. The band on this is the live band, who've been playing apart from one song, they've been playing all these songs in the Slow Train Coming tour. None of Bob's previous songs from any previous album are featured in those shows. So, of course, he needed more songs to fill the time. In among the songs from Slow Train Coming and his lengthy, hectoring, fire and brimstone speeches to the audience, telling them that they were evil and had to amend their ways. Just to recap, my views on that album are: this is a bloke who's one of the greatest lyricists of all time. He's a greatly intelligent man. And I've got no objection to people's religious views. Many artists I like have got very pronounced religious views. I think, Sid, you will agree the same with people you follow. And they often express their beliefs in their music. The problem with Bob's expression of his belief on Slow Train Coming was, it wasn't the religious belief, it was the tinge of the religious belief, which came across not as a highly intelligent, greatest lyricist of his generation type artist, but as a boring nutcase. And that's how he comes across on Slow Train Coming. On this album, it's not so bad, but it's still there. People often say, oh, people who like Bob Dylan, they just listen to the lyrics and they don't listen to the music. Well, on this album and the one before, there really is no alternative, because there's nothing in the lyrics to engage the mind particularly. There's no nuance, there's no ambiguity, there's no subtext, and there's no, I think, particularly on Slow Train Coming, very little sense of humanity. This album is often disparaged because it was produced in a rush. Dylan turned up, they did 4 days or 5 days, perhaps, more likely 4, in Muscle Shoals with the same production team as Slow Train Coming. And then they got back on the bus and went back on the road, and Bob shouting over send me the mix when you're finished, literally saying that, which I do find quite endearing, but also completely bonkers. I mean, this is a major artist who's recording for Columbia Records, and all he wants to do, even at this stage in 1980, is obviously get back on the road. He's not bothered about the record. Look at the cover. But controversially, I think this is a better record. I think this is a better record. I think the lyrics are nowhere near as nasty. Let me just use that word. Nasty as the words often were on Slow Train Coming. I think the band are really tight. I think the band are really good. And I think the band give it, even though they're, let's be honest, exhausted. The band are exhausted on this album. There's no soloist of distinction like Mark Knopfler was, who can brighten up a song with a few notes. There's no one of that standard in this band, but you've got Jim Keltner on drums, Tim Drummond on bass. They're a good band, and they've got these great backing singers. It sounds more upbeat. Saved. He's been saved. He's not trying to say you're all evil. He's been saved, and he's pretty happy about it. And The Covenant Woman, it's a very nice song, presumably to the actress Ms. Arters, who got him involved in this cult, let's be honest, in the first place. And I think Solid Rock is a great rocker, and was a highlight of these shows. Now, we can say that the shows had highlights because in the subsequent years, you've had this box set in the bootleg series. This is an interesting box set because it contains a lot of live material and some outtakes from the albums that didn't make the standard. I'm keeping my face straight. But what this proves, this set, which is 8 CDs and a DVD, and the DVD is bloody awful, as our viewers of Sky Arts will probably have seen it will know. The live performances are blazing. If anything, this album suffers from restraint. There's some amazingly powerful performances of this stuff. And very helpfully, this very elaborate box set also cuts out all the speeches in between. So we don't hear him having a go at the homosexuals or the Arabs in a completely insane way of a kind that doesn't account for any other part of his career. I repeat my contention. There's something wrong with Bob Dylan here. He's in a psychological bad place. His marriage is irrevocably broken up, and he's at the lowest point, I think, in his entire career. He was making happy, clappy music in the late 60s when he was married and he had his children, but he was personally happy, and you could see a sense of playfulness about those records, your Nashville Skylines and your self-portraits. There's no sense of playfulness in Bob now. He's lost all that. That was the idyllic period of his life, and it's gone, and he knows it. And his response seems to be to go completely inward and to rage at the world. The only good thing about this one record is he's coming to terms with the world a bit. He doesn't seem as nasty and vindictive as he did last time. I think there are some good songs. I think Solid Rock is a particularly good song. Saved is a good song. That was co-written with Tim Drummond, the bass player in the band, and Pressing On and Saving Grace are good songs. In the Garden, a very melodramatic song where when they came for him in the garden, did they know he was the Son of God? That's a very odd song indeed. I just say that very quickly now, because when I first saw Bob 7 years after this album, in 1987, he closed his main set with that song. This is a bloke who's now playing his great classics. He ended the set with In the Garden and then just went off, and the audience at the NEC were completely baffled by that. And then he came on and did 2 hits, but for his encores. But he set a great deal of store in that song, and I think it's an okay song. I don't think it's particularly brilliant, but its pull on Dylan himself seems to be somewhat mysterious, an indication he's not the full shilling in this period of his career. What did you think of it?
Well, because I now have bailed from buying the vinyl because I wanted to stave off the 2 Bs, boredom and bankruptcy.
What was the first one of the 2 Bs?
Boredom. So I had to listen to this on the streaming service that I subscribe to, and
Squeaky Clean Records.
say again.
Squeaky Clean music. What that one you listen to?
But I actually, I know it followed Slow Train, and I'm obviously aware of the religious period, etc. And I thought, a couple of quick observations. I thought it was definitely, you can hear the difference. A real step up from Slow Train coming. It's absolutely a different game. The content of it, the points you make about the band being on the road and taking time off to record this album, I think that really comes across. They're tight, they're energized, they're engaged, and to be fair, so is Bob. He sounds like he's giving real performances, which as I say in the past, it's a quality of Bob Dylan's performance that I quite like, when he gives those kind of really gutsy performances. Even though I have all sorts of problems with the music, and I generally couldn't care less about the lyrics. I thought,
but apart from that, though,
actually, I thought this. I didn't mind this album. It bowled along, and it kept me. It certainly kept me more interested than Slow Train. The other, there's a really good song. I had to write the name of it down because I never remember the names of things. Called "Pressing On," and
yeah, that's a great song. Yeah,
if I'd been given this blindfolded, I would have swore blind it was a song by the band. It had that real band quality, and interestingly enough, if I'd heard Robbie Robertson or Living Home or one of those guys sort of singing it, I'd probably say, "Oh, this is genius! This is marvelous!" But it sounded like the band is what struck me, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And given that Dylan's influence on the band, so it's kind of it's not surprising really. The track that stands out for me, the one track that I would take away from this album, if I had to, and I would take it away quite happily, is the one you've already mentioned, "Solid Rock." I think that's a great riff.
It is great song,
and I love the sort of the velocity of it as it's rattling along. Regardless of what it may or may not be about, I have no idea. But it just sort of chugs along, and it sort of sounds like it should. Good band, very professional, very tight, as you would expect them to be. So yeah, I actually didn't think, I was expecting to hate it.
Yeah, I'm surprised by your positivism.
But actually, I thought it was all right. My confession is that this is the second time I've listened to this album, because a few weeks ago I listened to it first time, and then forgot all about it, and then coming to it again, knowing we were doing this, I listened to it again, and I was, as I say, I was kind of pleasantly taken along by it. So it may not. And the other thing, just very quickly on the covers, I mean, I would imagine that Bob Dylan has very little to do with choosing the covers, and in one sense, that's possibly an echo of his early part of his.
I don't think that's true. I think he does have a great deal of influence over the covers. Yeah.
Well, except the cover change suggests to me that's. I mean, the original cover. That looks to me like a Bob Dylan has chosen this as signed off on the artwork. The Changeover, which is an appalling painting of Bob Dylan.
It's terrible painting.
Bob Dylan.
That looks like record company's business.
Well, that's definitely record company. But why they chose to do a painting of Bob Dylan in the middle of a coughing fit, I've no idea.
I don't know. It just looks like someone at the record.
Yeah.
Some executive fancies himself as a painter, has done it in about 10 minutes, and then that's there's your cover.
Yeah.
And I just mentioned one other point. You mentioned the band, and the opening track on this is the only cover on this album. A very old song, often described as a country gospel song, called "A Satisfied Mind." And in here, it's given the full gospel treatment with the backing vocals and the kind of R&B style arrangement. On the full box set, the bootleg series box set of the Basement tapes, Dylan sings that song in Woodstock in 1967, and he does it with the band, the same song in a country arrangement. So this is a song he's obviously very familiar with, and it's quite interesting to play those two versions because it's just a 2-minute. They just go into it, in the wrong and extensive sessions in between two originals. He just starts playing A Satisfied Mind, and they join in, and it's the same song, and it's just a weird kind of flashback to the Basement tapes to hear that suddenly emerge at the front of this album. A song he's never officially released before this, and no one would have known. It's not on the official released Basement tapes double album, but yeah, that's a song he's had in his back pocket for a long time, and a song he obviously loves. So anyway, just thought I'd mention that after just reminded me your mention of the band.
And that's interesting because it sort of sheds light on. He does seem to do this over the course of these discussions we've had. He often does kind of come into the studio and the subsequent box set always has a lot more that he rejected, and often, as you pointed out, those rejects are sometimes the most interesting things. Yes. But by picking a song like the one that opens it, it just sheds light on how he thinks about when he goes into the studio. Maybe they were short on time. Maybe he just needed it, or maybe just liked it, and maybe got off the bus. Where there'd be
it could be as simple as that. It could be as that, and it's just on that song appears in his mind, like an earworm. He obviously loves the song, And
while I have, sort of a little bit of difficulty with listening to or going in with Bob Dylan, I do like the spontaneity of his approach.
Yeah.
Even if I don't always like the results.
I do. It's the actual music you don't like. Yeah.
But I like sometimes the attitude that comes with it. At least it shows he's still got some vim and vigor about him. But I thought the whole performances, including Bob, I thought there was that sort of energized, sort of engaged, driven. I mean, as you pointed out, they were well sort of tried in on the road, well driven. Yeah. So it sounds like that. It sounds it's good. It's got a good quality to it. So
okay, this is unexpected positivity from both of us, really. I thought we were going to have a difficult discussion on this, and I think it is a surprisingly enjoyable record, and
it's all right.
And we're just about to enter the period where you've mentioned Bob picking the wrong tunes. We're about to enter a period where he's going to pick the wrong tunes in what could be a self-sabotaging, self-loathing way. So it is quite nice for him to just dip back into his memories there, and with that lovely callback to the Basement tapes. Yeah. So it's a completely different arrangement, by the way. It's nothing like the arrangement the band play on.
So what's the next port of call for our Dylan vinyl, which I haven't got now, but you.
Well, the next album is in episode 22. Will be "Shot of Love,"